This is Neil Schneider for MTBS-TV at, you guessed it, GDC 2019. To my immediate right is Neil Trevitt. Neil is president of the Khronos Group. He's also vice president of the developer ecosystem for NVIDIA. Welcome to the program, Neil.
Thank you.
That was a mouthful, wasn't it?
Yes.
You a little impressed?
Just say Neil, it's easier.
So I understand Khronos has a really big announcement here at GDC. What is it?
We have a big announcement. For the first time, we have the OpenXR specification available. So the developers no longer just have to look at PowerPoint, they can actually look at the detailed API specification, and we have a couple of implementations that are first out of the gate, so people can actually try the implementations and kick the tires too.
Okay, so why don't we rewind a little bit so people have a full appreciation of what's going on here.
Right.
So for those unfamiliar, what does the Khronos Group do?
So Khronos, we're an open standards organization. We're open to any company that wants to join. And there are many standard organizations out there. Our particular focus is creating acceleration hardware APIs. So for things like 3D graphics, you have OpenGL and Vulkan, for OpenCL for parallel compute, and now we have OpenXR for XR, which we mean AR and VR.
Okay, perfect. So for those unfamiliar with an open standard, is the goal that a coder could, say, develop once and it will work on multiple devices at the same time?
Yes. Actually, there's multiple facets to being an open standard. One is exactly as you say. There's a specification that the industry has come together, and there's consensus on what that functionality should be, and anyone can implement that open standard. But for the developers, yes, it means that they can access that one API, and it's implemented on multiple vendors' XR runtimes, and so developers for the first time can write once and run on any HMD for AR or VR that supports the OpenXR open standard API.
Okay, so let's think in practical terms. So there's all kinds of virtual reality devices and augmented reality devices. HTC, Oculus. Google's got their thing. Yep. Magically, their list goes on and on.
Yes.
So can you speak to which vendors are part of this, and what are the deliverables?
Yes. So we've been very fortunate that we've very quickly, in the lifetime of the OpenXR development, we managed to get a good quorum. The majority of the HMD vendors wanted to join the group and have helped us create the spec. And I think that speaks to the fact that there are really no losers here. Everyone, I think, is going to win. So the first wave was the VR folks, and both on PC and mobile. So we had Valve and HTC, Oculus, all joining in very early, along with Google and Samsung on the mobile side. And we thought that we were going to have to wait a little bit longer for the AR community to join in, but they came in hot. And now we have Microsoft, which is actually both for their mixed reality headsets and HoloLens 2. Microsoft has stated today that HoloLens 2 is going to get an OpenXR runtime, and Magic Leap have joined too. So we have good representation from both the AR and the VR side of the XR community.
Okay, so to underscore why this is so important, or really the big benefits. So if you're a content creator, it doesn't have to be games, it could be other types of content as well, I'm sure. What would be the big benefit of this happening?
So it is a win-win-win. Everyone wins. Everyone's a winner. So for content developers, you can write once and you can run on a lot more hardware systems. So you get bigger market for no extra work. If you're a HMD vendor, if you expose the OpenXR API in your runtime, you get access to a larger body of content. Any OpenXR app or game will suddenly, magically, run on your hardware, so your ecosystem gets stronger too. But of course, the most important winner is the end user. The end user suddenly has a lot more confidence if they purchase an XR device that they're going to be able to run the content that they want. So it's no longer the Oculus looking over the Vive and vice versa. Because right now we're in a classic VHS versus Betamax situation. I'm not sure if I should spend that much money on a VR system if half the content is not going to run on my hardware. I think OpenXR will go a long way to helping to solve that problem, boosting end user confidence and hopefully growing the market for everyone.
Let's use like a real world example. I mean, each of these head-mounted displays tend to have their own store. Like you go to their vendor site, you buy those, the content from their site, and it works with their particular head-mounted display. Some have, they support multiple head mounts through their own internal efforts, but it's not a standard in the traditional sense. Right. Does this make it so that if a game developer or content creator supports this OpenXR standard, that no matter which store they purchase from, it should, in theory, work on other solutions as well?
So, OpenXR, it's a technical API. It's an engineering solution. It still lets the commercial side of the industry do many things. So yes, from a technical point of view, if a developer writes to the OpenXR APIs, there should be very little engineering reason why it wouldn't run on any of the HMDs that support OpenXR. Of course, that OpenXR is not going to dictate in any way how people run their businesses. So if people want to get commercial exclusives on their stores and other good deals for end users, of course, that will continue. And OpenXR, that's not OpenXR's business in any way. Our job is to get rid of the technical barriers. So if people do want to run across multiple platforms, it becomes possible to do so.
And what I've often seen, it's no indicator it's necessarily going to happen, but sometimes a content will start as an exclusive, and then a little further down the road, it will spread to other platforms. Absolutely. So this makes it that much easier to diversify when the content creator is ready to do so.
Yes, exactly. And you would expect that. It's still early days, and we just released the spec, and the first implementations have been available for 6 hours. So we don't have apps yet, but over the next months, as we roll out during the rest of the year, I do believe you will see an increasing body of OpenXR-based content, and it'll be interesting to see how the industry responds commercially to that. We'll have to wait and see. But again, Khronos' role and OpenXR's role is just to solve the engineering problems. That's our place in the ecosystem.
So there's the compatibility advantage. There's the ease of transition advantage when content creators are ready. Yeah. Are there performance benefits? Is there something about the way OpenXR works versus other options that makes it a more effective option?
Well, we're about to find out. And that's part of the feedback we want from the industry, for people to actually kick the tires, not just read the spec. But we're pretty confident that OpenXR is going to deliver state-of-the-art performance. Sometimes when you get a whole bunch of companies like this coming together, it turns into distilling down into a boring lowest common denominator to get the cross-platform portability. In this case, OpenXR took a few more months than we originally were hoping, but I think it's going to be worth the wait, because what's happened is that a bunch of companies active in the XR space have come to the table with a lot of learning experience from their Gen 1 APIs and wanting to benefit and share that learning, which is the awesome thing, to create a Gen 2 framework, and that's what OpenXR is. So OpenXR is not just the cross-platform portability, it's everyone the best minds in the industry coming together to say, let's learn from our first generation APIs and see how we can do it better this time.
So good stuff. So when I take it, you at this point you've got the spec, which means I take it as the definition of the standard and the means of implementing the standard.
That's right.
And then you've got some code samples, yeah?
We have code samples on using the spec. One of the implementations from Collabora is an open source implementation. So it lets you hook into any HMD that uses the OpenHMD open source framework. So not only do you have a look at the spec, you can actually dive into the open source and see how someone else has implemented it. So.
Okay, good stuff. And I know it's still early days, but maybe within a year or so, I'm just using a round number, should consumers start looking for that Khronos logo on their content? Is it something that people should be shopping for?
I think you will see the OpenXR logo. I think you will on both applications and HMDs. Again, because there's no losers here. Everyone benefits from having this increased level of interoperability. One of the things I would point out, particularly to your viewership, is Khronos has released this spec as a provisional 0.9 spec, and this is something that Khronos normally does, particularly if we're doing first gen spec. OpenGL 4.6, everyone kind of knows 4.5 plus some stuff, everyone's in the groove. But this is something completely new. So we think, what we mean by provisional is that we think it's done and we think it's beautiful, but we welcome more perspectives from the wider industry just to make really sure that we've done things right before we bake 1.0. So we have a window now of a few months where we're genuinely wanting input from the industry saying, no, you screwed that up, let's do this in a different way, because we have a chance before we bake the 1.0 spec. This is the time for the industry to have a voice in the final form of OpenXR. But that review period, it is months, not years. We want to get this done and shipped out with conformance tests, with first apps, with everything together, so end users can begin to enjoy the benefit.
Now, you touched on this by mentioning the vendor names, but like the applications I'm seeing here right now are PC-based. But I'm gathering there's a mobile side to this as well?
Yes, actually, the Microsoft has an implementation for their mixed reality headsets. That's Windows, yes. Collabora, their open source implementation is already running on Windows and Linux. So yes, but they're desktop. Now, the mobile community have been part of OpenXR from the beginning, folks like Google and Samsung and others. And so we haven't forgotten them, and that the architecture of OpenXR absolutely spans mobile, desktop, even up to cave systems. We haven't tested that yet, but yes, there's nothing inherent that limits OpenXR to any particular one form factor. So we hope to see many more implementations rolling out over the next few weeks and months.
Okay, wonderful. So how could developers learn more?
Go to Khronos.org and click on the OpenXR logo, and you'll find all the resources there you need, the spec, reference cards, there's sample code, links to the implementations, everything you need.
All right, wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us, Neil.
Of course, thank you.
This is Neil Schneider for MTBS-TV at GDC 2019. We will, of course, be back with more. Thanks for watching.